Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Behind the Scenes. My name is Diana Lizarazo and today's guest speaker is Janci Templeman. And we do this show every Thursday. So if you're interested in transformation time or behind the scenes, this is the day to do it, to watch it. Now, before we get started, I want to share some exciting news with you. I have a social networking platform. It is for real estate investors, real estate mentors, and real estate professionals. And if you want to see more about Janci, you can go into ReFam, which is realestateinvestorfam.com, and you can check out her profile. You can see what she's up to. You can also see, for example, calendar events, and it's just a social networking platform where you can find some supports to be around like-minded people. Now back to the show. On Behind the Scenes, we're going to get to hear about a specific project. We'll get to hear about what the strategy was behind the project, high-level numbers if possible, and the fun part, getting to hear about all the problems that were encountered on that project, how they solved them, and if it was something new for them, what they would do next time. So if you guys are ready, let's send some hearts, some thumbs up, and let's get Janci on. To add her before we can get her on. Let's see. And while we wait to get Janci on, because Instagram likes to take 20 years, let us know what strategies are interesting you these days. Do you guys know that the Bank of Canada, I'm going to cancel this, Janci, and then I'm going to invite you, and then let's see if that works. But did you guys know that interest rates stayed? There was a call yesterday. Oh, there we go. Hey.
Hey, can you see me okay?
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Let's get started. So let's tell the viewers a little bit about yourself. What are your real estate strategies? What's your experience like? Anything you'd like to share about yourself in the real estate investing industry?
Sure. So my name is Janci Templeman. I live in Regina, Saskatchewan. I've been investing since 2011. Started out with buy and hold real estate, thinking that that's how I'm going to exit my 9 to 5. And I soon realized that that wasn't going to happen. I was self-employed and got to work whenever I wanted to work, which was awesome, but it just was not going to replace a salary. So we pivoted, we flipped a house thinking that's going to be the easiest, fastest way to make some money, which it is. But my husband and I did all of the work ourselves, evenings, weekends, time in between, and we were wanting to start a family, and it just was not going to happen. So that's when we met Stefan Arnio, and he's like, look, let's teach you how to do this as a business, not as a side hustle. And ever since then, that was about 2014, I've flipped 31 houses now and have had 2 kids in that time. So pregnant, raising them, going to job sites with the bucket seat and diaper changes and nap times and everything. And yeah, so in that time too, we've accumulated some other properties with the BRRRR strategy. So now we're holding 27 doors, and we just purchased a 17-unit apartment building just in the end of 2023.
That's amazing. So, yeah. Super mom. Oh my God. Super woman, you know. I always do tributes to people that I don't know how, I can just be doing so many amazing things at the same time, but it's like we just make it work, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. So let's get started. So which project are we going to get to hear about today?
Well, this was probably the one that we profited on the most, that was the most unexpected. It was another real estate investor who was wanting to get into wholesaling or just wanting to get into real estate in general, but he just didn't have the skills. He put an ad out saying, we buy houses. Somebody called his ad and they're like, yeah, come have a look. And then he panicked. He's like, I don't know what to do. Can you guys come help me? So my husband and I got in the vehicle, went over there, and it was a middle-aged bachelor that's owned this thing for 30 years, but I think mom died or dad died. Anyways, he's going to move back home to go help out. But this house was like stuck in time, and it was a disaster, and he was a bad hoarder, and it was gross. And you could tell he just didn't want to clean it. And I wouldn't want to either. I wouldn't want people looking through this house. There was cobwebs. The worst part of it, there was a room in the basement that had a bed, and there was tarps on the wall in the closet, a bunch of VHS tapes. Like, oh, like I can't imagine what he's doing in there. But then I saw a bunch of coins on the floor, like loonies and toonies, like not just like a few, like probably 20, 30 bucks worth. So I go down to start picking them up off the floor, and I'm sitting on, or he must have just been sitting on the end of his bed clipping his toenails. I'm talking like 10 years of toenail clippings all over the floor, in amongst all these coins on the floor. And I was just like, bleh. Oh my God, this is so gross. So there was bets with my crew that like, who's going to clean this part up? Who's going to clean this part up? So it was funny,
I
but
know there's always a fight between the crews, right? When you're in a place where it's just such a disaster, it's just like it all flows downhill. No, usually it's like the runt in the group that gets to do it, and everyone else is nope, not touching
yeah,
it. Sucks to be you, you know.
they even told this one guy, here, I'll give you an extra $200 to go clean that, like demo the bathroom and the toilet and the bathtub and everything. He's like, no way. And then like a week later, they ended up making him do it anyways, and he could
Yeah,
make $200.
exactly.
But anyways, so after we'd gone through the
So
house,
this
like
one
it
was
was,
a flip, right? This
this
is
is
a
a
flip that
flip,
you're
yeah.
doing, and it was what, a three
This would
bedroom like
have been
bungalow
4 bed,
style?
2 bath, about 1,100 square feet, single family bungalow with a detached single garage, but another, uh, yeah, there was room for more parking, but it was just really neglected. So after we got outside, had a chat about it, and he even said, like, I know you guys want to make some money on this, and he's like, you could probably sell it for 250. And I'm thinking, no, it's probably worth more than that, but whatever. And he's like, well, how about 70,000? I was like, of course, in my mind, I'm like, yes, we're gonna take it. But I'm trying to play it cool. And we're like, oh, okay. And then we're like, what are you gonna do with these vehicles? Because he had 2 vehicles that were sitting there. He's one guy. He drives 3 cars. And he's like, I don't know. I gotta sell them. And just was thinking that this was such a burden for him. So I said, okay, well, we're gonna just crunch some numbers. We'll give you a phone call right back. So as we're leaving, I'm like elbowing my husband, like, we're taking this house. And so we talk about it, and we're like, you know what? Let's offer him a little bit more and take those vehicles off his hands. So we offered him 74,000. I got a 2004 Dodge Dakota Sport truck, Honda Civic hatchback. We sold the Honda for $1,500. He said it didn't work. It was a new battery and like a spark plug. It was like nothing. And we paid a guy a case of beer to like fix it for us. Then the truck, we ended up keeping it for ourselves for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. And then we ended up selling it, I think 2 years ago for $5,000. So we definitely made our money back. And so the numbers on that.
To show, even as sorry to interrupt, but I just want to make a point actually that I think is so important, that it goes to show, because a lot of people think it's always about the money. And I feel like generally, I feel like 90% of the time it's not. Right? And it's like that, like you provided a convenient way for him to just offload his disaster and not have to stress about anything and move on in his life.
Yeah. And I totally agree, because a lot of times it's not about the money. It's about the, I need to get out quickly, or I don't want to clean up this mess. I've inherited this. Or I had another instance where the best friend was the executor of the estate, and this lady died suddenly, and all of a sudden her friend is like, I have no idea what to do. And the 18-year-old kid is inheriting it, but she's like, I don't know, I have to work in the best interest of this kid. And he's kind of all over the place. But yeah, I think that was one other reason I get a lot of referrals for private deals as well. I think being female obviously helps, being a bit more sensitive to the situation and finding those needs and more focusing on what they're wanting. I definitely want it cheap as possible, and I want to make money. And I don't hide that either. And if they want like some ballpark number that's way too high, and I said, look, that's not going to work for me, and it's totally fine. I'm here to make money. This is how I make a living. And if that number doesn't work for you, that's totally fine. We can hope you have luck finding someone else. And I get people calling me back, and they're like, you know what? We can go lower, or can you go, like, they'll get really close to my number, and then I'll be like, yeah, that'll work. So
Amazing.
I would say that's probably happened 6 or 7 times on some private deals. And those are my biggest money makers for sure.
Yeah, 100%. So let's go with the numbers. So with this property, so you said, so you bought it for a little bit over 70, so around like what, 80 or something?
74,000.
74,000. And then, so how much were the renovations? Was this a full gut? Like, did you have to go down to the studs, or you're able to salvage a bit of it?
I was able to salvage. We had to redo the kitchen, the drywall behind the cabinets. Like, he just never fixed a leaky pipe or like the faucet. So he would just silicone around it. So like it was just gobs of silicone, but it just would run down the wall on the floor. So they actually fixed, I think, even some of the floor, like the actual plywood underneath. All that drywall in the kitchen got replaced, but everything else was able to be salvaged. Where the tub was, they did new drywall there. But flooring, paint, doors, trim. I added a couple. I like to add my own little special touch, so I put some wood faux beams, but I made them myself out of pine wood. What else did I do? Yeah.
Did you have to do
it was all
any exterior work, or it was just interior?
It was all we did do exterior. I was able to paint the existing stucco. So it's that 50s, 60s stucco that has like the blue and the green and the brown glass in it, shards in it. So I have a guy that actually is pretty cheap for me. He would do one heavy coat, but he spray painted like with a sprayer with paint for $900 to do the entire exterior. So I still drive by that house to this day, and I'm like, it still looks really good. So he painted the garage door, the exterior. We did a new front and back door, and we just had a front step that he did. The shingles, I believe,
So what
were
did
already
that come to around?
Everything was about $100,000. And that I kind of rolled in my holding costs with that as well. We held on to this one, I would say, for 4 months. By the time
the sale, like from end to end, it was renovations plus the time it took to sell and close. You would say 4 months?
4.5 to 5 months.
5 months?
Yeah.
So 4 months renovation, or 3.5 month kind of renovation then?
Yeah.
Would it?
Yeah. And so then we would have got it in the end of summer. Like, I just have my stuff here on my computer. So it sold in November. And yeah, we would have got it in the summer, probably July, August. So then we were able to do a lot of the yard stuff. Oh, we did build a new fence. I learned about having contracts with neighbors. Like, we'd had good experience with neighbors before. And the guy's like, yeah, I'll go halvesies with you on the fence. So time came. And we built the fence, and I was like, okay, you owe us like whatever it was. And he's like, I didn't agree to that. I'm like, yeah, you did. He's like, I said I would help you build it with my time. And I'm like, that was you never said a word that you would help me physically build the fence. So it was back and forth, and I just had to eat that cost. But it sold.
And sometimes you have to, right? For especially in a flip sense, it's like timeline is so important that sometimes you're just like, whatever, especially, I feel like generally, at least for us, we don't count them. Like, we won't consider that part of our budget. It's more of like a plus anyways. If they do help out, great. If not, then it's just kind of like, who cares? Because you don't want to, like, that time is so important, where it's like, who has time to be fighting about it? Because it's like, we just got to make sure we get it on the market and sold in the time frame.
And this one was weird because it was on a corner lot. So the house was positioned in a different way. So that fence line ran the entire, like, you walk out of the back door and the fence line runs the entire length, and your yard is on the side. So you would see that crappy fence every single day when you'd walk out of your house. So it needed to get done. So it all worked out. It sold. I think we had competing offers. it ended up selling for $289,500.
289.5.
Oh, so $400 under asking price, but you know, everybody offered less, but we ended up getting more than what I expected. And we got the two
What did that
vehicles.
come up to?
Yeah, so the gross profit was 122,000 on that.
That's amazing, especially in 4 months. That's amazing to have that kind of profit in there.
And it
That's
was still, it
awesome.
was a good experience because I was in the transition of hiring new contractors. I'd used them half a flip before when some guy walked out. It was a referral. He was terrible. He walked away from the job. I needed to find someone else to finish. These guys stepped in. So this was like the next one that they were really going for. And then it was from that flip on, I'd used them straight for the next 5 years for all of my stuff and pretty much kept them busy. Like they were pretty busy in the summer and had some stuff over the winter, but I held them over and kept them employed for a long time. So
Amazing.
good keeping
And
those
so,
relationships as well.
yeah, I mean, I feel like that's something when you find the right contractor, it's like you try to hold on to them as much as you can. And if anything, you're like working hard to keep them working. You know, it's like, let me give you business. I
Yeah.
don't want to lose you.
Yeah. And when we have stuff go down at the rentals or anything like that, like these last couple flips I had a rental and the flip house, the furnace went down within 2 days of each other. I was like, oh my gosh. But it was a phone call. They were there within a few hours. It's not like when you phone somewhere else, oh, I'll get there in 2 days. They were there. And I got a secondhand furnace for one of them and I had a brand new one for the other. But at least having that relationship, I had the option of getting a secondhand one because they do work with this other company and they get all the reject. Like there was nothing wrong with it. It was in good shape. It was just used. So yeah.
That's awesome. Now let's get to I feel like the exciting part that people always love hearing about is the problems that were encountered. So which one would you like to start with? What was a problem that you encountered on this project?
Well, I definitely established because I didn't have really good relationships with the contractors yet. They didn't really know me that well. I had another guy from that we'd used previously that was doing some of the work and the new guys were coming in and they were starting to bicker and bitch about each other. And so there was a tub box, and I'm sure you guys have seen the tub boxes are huge. So my old guy loaded it up with garbage, but the other guys are dealing with the garbage. So it was so heavy, like the box was just going to shred and all the garbage was going to go everywhere. So they're yelling at me, well, that guy needs to go clean it up. I said, well, whatever, I will pay you to go and deal with it. And well, no, that's not your responsibility. That guy needs to go back and clean it up. I phone him. He's like out of town doing a job. It's not going to get done. It needs to get done now. The flooring's going in tomorrow. So this other guy's like, no, I'm like, just do it. Like, I'm paying you to clean up the mess. Just do it.
Yeah.
No, that's not my. And so I got upset. I was like, it needs to get done. So I have an infant and a toddler, and I grabbed my stuff. And I think my husband was working out of town, so he wasn't even here. So I hoofed it over town and I started taking all of that garbage, put the car seat down. My toddler, I gave him some gloves. I'm like, here, play with these branches and throw them in the bin. And I went and unloaded it by myself. He's like, you don't need to be doing that. I'm like, I know I don't. I told you I was going to be paying you for this and you're not doing it. So this is how this stuff works. We all work as a team. You don't need to be complaining. And that set the precedent moving forward and nobody ever complained. And so they knew I was meaning business and I wasn't going to mess around. And they've never complained like that to me ever again. And then we'll bring new guys in and everybody just works so well together. They go off and do other jobs together. And so I'm like, see, this is what it should be like.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be like the
Great
blame
that
game all
you
the time.
Yeah. Exactly. And I feel like that does happen a lot in the renovation world. They're so just used to always getting shit for everything they do that it's like they're always have that guard up. And I feel like that is one difference when you're dealing with an investor, or especially a good investor, because I'm sure there are people that may not care. But like you said, like it's about working together because it is hard when you're getting two teams. Because like you said, like one's trying to blame the other, and as investors, we're like, I don't care. Like you said, like we just need to solve this problem
Yeah.
immediately. That's all we care about. It's like a solution. I remember same thing. I was having like these people bickering and arguing and blaming, and I'm just like, I don't want to hear it anymore. All I want to hear is solution. What are we going to do about this? Like I just was just like I was done. I'm like, I think we should do this, this, and this, you know, and I was just like, is this what we're gonna do or not? You know, it just got to a point where like I
Yeah.
just don't have time for people to complain and argue about things like I don't care, you know. I'm like I'm not deducting any money or anything. Like we just need to solve this, you know.
Yeah. And I still, there was future jobs that I get just the one-off guys to come in and then they're complaining. I'm like, it feels like I'm babysitting grown men.
Yeah,
That's what it
I hear you.
it's just like, come on, guys. It's the same like behaviors that you see on the playground and that sort of stuff, but we're just older and on a bigger playground, and it's like conflict resolution. And okay, if you were me, what do you think I would do? Or, like put yourself in their shoes. What would you do? Would you leave this mess and just, so I think I'm good at doing that, and leading the team so that they're not getting all that bickering and stuff. But um, going back to what you were saying about other challenges with this one, near the end of like we have an accepted offer, and they came back and said your garage is covering your gas line. And I was like, excuse me, what's going on? And apparently the neighbor across the street told me that they picked up and moved the garage over and dropped it, but they never got a permit. They never like call before you dig or anything. And they put it on the gas line, and they're like, you can't do that. And I'm like, well, I know that now. I didn't do it.
Yeah.
This was done like 15, 20 years ago.
Oh
And
wow.
they're like, well, you need to move the gas line. Now it's November. So I had to pay to move that gas line, but nothing could get done until the spring. So anyways, that was a surprise. I've never had to deal with that before. So the lawyer had to help hold some money in trust, but it wasn't as expensive as I thought, but it wasn't something I expected at all. Like, who thinks that they're going to put an old garage over top of a gas line? But
And even move it, you know, like well, I wonder what the
yeah,
what the intention was behind that. I feel like isn't that expensive just to move it and lift it, and the fact like you move it and then it may topple over just
yeah.
because the garage is not the sturdiest thing in the world, you know?
And it was like the neighbor said he wanted it moved over like 2 feet because he wanted to park his boat on the other side of the garage because it was a long lot this way. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but the house sat on it on a different angle, and whatever. That was a learning lesson. I didn't think I'd have to get an inspection to find where my gas line runs, but it was only maybe $1,000, not even, to
Mm-hmm.
it, so it was fine.
Mm-hmm.
But that one
Luckily, yeah,
actually
it was
was pretty
fine.
successful. It didn't have a lot of challenges.
Mm-hmm. Was so in the renovation sense, um, were you on target to exactly what you expected your budget to be, or did you have to spend more than you expected? How was that? Like, did you have problems in that area, or that was just like budget wise, you stayed within your budget?
Budget wise, I was pretty close. Like the fence thing, the gas line thing, a couple $1,000s. But I also kind of made it a wash because we made money on the vehicle. Like we made $1,500 on that one vehicle. So okay, there's a plus.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we were over. Like when I did the numbers, I want to say I did the numbers at 275. I actually may have listed that at 275. I'm trying to remember because it was a few years ago. So it was about $14,000 over asking price. So we were happy with this one. There's
Mm-hmm.
been others where there's definitely been more challenges.
And what about for the mortgage sense on it? Did you have to get a mortgage on it? Were there any issues getting the mortgage, or was that also an easy process?
I buy all my houses cash, and I believe this one was full cash investors. And it was pretty straightforward. Hey, this is what we're buying it for. So any investor that looks at the numbers, they already know that's like lot price. So what we're getting it for, and you can just go onto realtor.ca and just see, oh yeah, everything's selling for 275 to 325 or something in that area. So they already knew it was going to be a good deal. Because I post pictures and videos of the whole process, so they got to see what it looked like beforehand. And yeah, it was an easy capital raise for that one for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hear you. I've had the same scenario when you get a property where it's just such a good deal, like you said, it's just like it just sells itself, you know? It's just like if anything, people are throwing money at you and you're just like, okay, okay.
Yeah. I'll get you on the next one.
Yeah, exactly. Any other learning experiences in the project that you wanted to talk about?
In this one, I would say this was probably one of the easier ones. And I think it was just nice because we made such a good profit on it.
Mhm.
Um, I would say like the last one that I just did, number 31, was probably the one I had the most challenges with, which you'd think after being in this for 10 years now, just flipping, that, I've come across it all. Well, this one, I did an agreement for sale, so I didn't have to raise the capital for the purchase price. He already bought a second house, the owner, and he just didn't have enough money to finish it, and just wanted to, he's like, pay the rest of my mortgage off. Like, that's all I want. And so that what he had left was still a good price. But the reno went wild soon after.
Like
It just kind of,
price-wise and materials were the problem, or
the
like just the
structure
work
of the
that came up?
building. So
Mm.
it had an engineer's report. It needed to be braced, which is very common in our city. And I've done tons of those, no big deal. But once it was with a different engineer that I'm not familiar with, and her requirements were different. And then we had to cut out more of the slab. And then once that happened, it was in such bad shape. Any new concrete that we were going to introduce is just like tying into nothing, like crumbling dust. So we had to re-pour a new slab. But then once you do that, then the city, your permit changes. So now I need to dig down deeper. I need to put radon rock in. I need to put radon. I need to do full weeping tile. I need to do a sump pit. Like, so it just started escalating really fast. And I find out all the channels that he ordered, like the metal steel channels, they were too short. He didn't measure properly. So I had to reorder half of them. So I did go back to the seller and say, look, I'm not going to pay you for the mortgage this month because I have to reorder all of this. And he's like, yeah, that's fine. It wasn't a difficult conversation with him because I think he knew, but there was
And
just a
just for
lot of
curiosity for
stuff.
the viewers, and just because I don't know, what is bracing? You
Right.
said, what is that?
So here, I don't know how it is out there, what you guys do for your basement, but it's concrete walls generally. Like, they dig down, they build 4 concrete walls sitting on a footing. Well, our foundations and our ground is made of clay. So we're in Saskatchewan, we're farming communities. It's generally just dry. And in the city, it's clay. So when we get, you know, not a once in a lifetime, but every 4 years we get like big rains. So all of a sudden, all that clay expands and holds all this water, and it pushes on the foundations. And then over years, it just eventually goes back. So the foundations are doing this for decades.
Oh,
And so you get these big cracks in the concrete. And code wasn't as good back then. So they would only put horizontal rebar. They wouldn't put vertical. So they would generally crack about halfway up your foundation. This happened at my primary residence too. And sometimes you have to push the wall back because it goes like this. And then you got to push it back. And then you put these steel channels. You have to dig a hole in your foundation or in your slab. It goes a foot down deep, and then you reconcrete into the floor. Then you tie it up to your floor joists, and you have to secure it in there with another 2x12. And then you have to grout behind every single one of those channels. So, and it has to be every 3 to 4 feet around your entire basement.
Oh, so it's
So
you're actually like containing it, like you actually put everything so that it holds it together. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. So this one, the way that she wanted it done is the same thing, but this was a 1940s house, and the footing was sticking out of the wall. So the wall would come, and I could see the footing. So the channels would sit on top, but on some of them they were dangling. They weren't touching. There was nothing for them to tie into, and then we
Mhm.
had to build a little pony wall, and it was like 12 inches by 12 inches, and that's what concreted in the channel for moving. So that's a lot of concrete. Luckily, my brother-in-law is my concrete guy, and he
Help you out
did it
a
for
bit.
a good price. Like somebody else said that they got a quote for similar work for 35,000, and I did
Mhm.
it for 17.
And I
So yeah,
that's the value of experience and building relationships. 'Cause I feel like even if it weren't your brother and you had someone else, because we've had a situation in the same where we just needed someone to come in. Specifically, we were working in Toronto, and a lot of people in the suburbs do not like to go into Toronto. And our main hub of people is suburb people because we're rarely ever working in Toronto. And we happen to do this project, so we get someone we don't know. Uh, they disappear on us. And so we need to find someone, and everyone was booked like 3 months in advance, 4 or 5 months in advance. At that time, it was hard to find people to come in immediately, and we had to put the the property up for sale like in a month, or yeah, or at that time it was 2 months. We had to find someone and then have it ready for it to get to for September, or sorry, January. This was January, February time frame. And it was crazy. We had to pull connections, and they gave us a good deal because we had that relationship already built, and we never really asked for things. So when the time came, it was just like we had that good relationship, and they're just like, you know what, you're in a pinch. Like we help you out, right? And I feel like that's also, I think, a very valuable thing when it's like you've had so many years of experience, you've like built up that crew well, you've um treated them well, and like all these things will come to help you in those times of
yeah.
dire need, right?
And I was just thinking, I'm like, if this was any other investor, like I have some students as well that are wanting to get into the business, and this was actually a wholesale deal to me as well. Somebody brought it to me, and I thought if they were to have taken this on by themselves, they would have been crushed.
Yeah.
Like this was a career ending thing. I didn't lose any money, but I didn't really make any money. Like I was
Mhm.
supposed to be profiting like 40 grand. And then that basement, and then because then I didn't want to leave the concrete open, so then I framed it, poly insulated. I didn't drywall it, but then it just kind of snowballed into more things. So yeah, there was a lot of things. Then the furnace going down, and the sewer line at the very end, and then
Yeah.
water in the basement, and like it just was
And I think
brutal.
that's the thing, like a really good point that you're making is that if you're a new investor, jumping into like such a big project like that, like you said, that would just probably end it and just traumatize you to an extent that
Yeah,
you would just never come back. Whereas you've had so much experience, like you said, you're very solutions. Oh, I don't know if you, I don't know if you heard me. I got a
no,
call,
it's good.
but um, you're solutions oriented, and so you're in the mode of like, got to figure it out. There's nothing that I can do about it. Whereas I feel like as a new investor, you still kind of waver on that confidence. I feel like with experience, like yes, things can go wrong, but I feel like you just move forward, right? As an investor with experience, you're just like, okay, this problem comes up. We need to figure it out. What is the solution? How can I save money? Because like you said, I'm already now going over budget. And I mean, and they always say, right, the longer you're in it, the chances are a deal not making money. Well, the chances become higher too. So, but at least we've become built enough that like you can withstand it.
Yeah,
If even like you said, this one you probably went for a break even, but even if it were a loss, like I don't think, like you said, it wouldn't have ended your career, right? You would have been like, okay, lost money, definitely learning experience, right? And then moving on to the next
yeah,
one.
for sure.
Yeah, so
And for moving forward too, I think I want to focus more on bigger deals too.
mhm,
Like
mhm.
there's so much work involved in these little ones, and I've talked to some other people in my circle, and they're like, the amount of work crunching the numbers, raising the capital, like it's the same amount, but you're just dealing with bigger dollar amounts, and you can add a couple zeros on it, and the amount of knowledge that you have, like you can do more. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I know I can. So I think I'm going to be transitioning into more big stuff now.
That's amazing. That'll be exciting because, like you said, it'll probably be like scary, but then once you're actually doing it, you're just like, oh my God, why didn't I do this sooner?
Yeah. And it was scary when I first started in real estate too, because I had no experience, no background. I had no connections when I first started out either. It was just a learning curve, but I knew that this is something that I need to do for long term, and it's going to really benefit me and my family and my long term wealth and everything like that. So I just kept thinking
That, and you had
that
your
back in my
support
mind.
system. Yeah, and you had your support system, right? Because you said you joined the mentorship, so you had a support system, and I believe it comes with the community, right? Seven Arneo at that time was there a community, or at least you had someone to guide you through
At
it.
the time, I was the third student, so there
Oh,
was no community yet. It was me and Stefan and my husband. We were on calls like once a week. So the program that he had now is very different from it was kind of built on, I think, the first couple students, like what are their needs, what are their questions, what are they trying to look for? And I don't know, we still benefited from it for sure, because we scaled it and have a system in place that it's just wash, rinse, and repeat. Like my guys always talk about, are you going to do the Janci special on the next one? Yeah. So like stain paint, door trims, like all of that sort of stuff. So we don't need to be thinking about the little things. It's just getting the capital, buying the property, negotiating it down, doing the job, making sure I'm not over budget, staging it, selling it, move on to the next one, and trying to do multiples at a time too. So if I didn't go through any sort of mentorship, there's no way we would be doing the work ourselves on the weekends and evenings, and then still having babies at home, which would make zero sense. The whole point was to be able to free up my time to be able to be at home with my kids. And I was still able to be at home with my kids. I was just able to do everything from my phone. So phone calls in the morning, checking in with everybody, seeing how, hey, what are you guys getting up to today? And I think,
and I think a
sorry, go ahead.
mentor, I think with having a mentor, because you said he specifically was also to teach you how to run it as a business, which I think is so pivotal, because if you went in it by yourself, I don't think you probably would have even thought of how to run it as a business. So you probably wouldn't have even scaled to the level that you would have.
No.
And maybe like that, maybe it wouldn't have been a full-time job. So if anything, you'd just be struggling to juggle as like a day job plus the kids plus the house, but yeah, the rent, the flipping. So it's just having that mentor kind of just like helps you. It gives you that confidence. Now I felt like when I had my mentor, I just felt like if I wavered in some confidence, I just go back to him, hey, da 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 da, and then I'd be like, yeah, you're good, and be like, or no, you need to do this, this, and this, and I was like, okay, I'm glad I asked, and they just give you that bit of confidence too.
Yeah, for sure. And so I'm in the coaching space now, with Blackheart, like Stefan Ardio's program. So I wanted to be that for somebody else, because it was so so pivotal for my success having somebody there. And it's not like Stefan was the only person that I've ever been mentored by. There's other people previous to him that I still am in contact with to this day. And if I ever have questions or like just need an ear, then they're always there for me. And I want to be that person for someone else in their real estate journey. And yeah, so we've had a couple students have some really good successes, and had some real challenges too, and they still reach out and be like, what do I do? And I'm like, this is what you need to do. And they're like, okay, good. So
the power of mentorship is amazing. I also say the same thing. For me, I don't think I would be where I am if it weren't for the mentorship, because I can tell you, actually, I was already investing beforehand. But like you said, I was not doing it as a business. I specifically, same thing, got a mentor was because like I need to figure out how people do this full time, and how they're able to do it. So it's I totally get what you're saying, and it's just like that. If you guys, if to the audience, if you guys are looking to learn actually how to run a business in the real estate side, it is so important to find a mentor because they're just that little confident booster for you. If you do like that, like I came in knowing actually also information about real estate. So it's not as if it was something completely new. So I wasn't starting from the ground, but and having to build up. But even in there, like it's just I knew I really just needed someone to kind of hold my hand, like
Yeah.
okay, like this is the right way, this is not the right way, this is better approach, whatever. It's just you don't see the impact. If you really want to go on your own and start a business, it's like have to go with a mentor just because it's like going to go much faster.
Yeah.
Like I was able to do things in like 2.5 years and get myself full time in real estate, which that wasn't even the intended plan. It was my plan was a 5-year plan, and that was me being ambitious because it was really a 10-year. But I was like, but 5 would be the best, like.
Yeah.
Right. So my best was actually 5 years, and then it was just like, holy shit, this was a lot better than I expected. But
Yeah.
because I had a mentor.
Right. And me too. I it was in the middle of our coaching, but I became pregnant and I couldn't do the work anymore physically because I was still like dabbling and doing things that I probably, my husband's like, stop it. Like, you don't have to be doing this. But I felt like I just needed my hands on something. And I think it was also being at home and me needing to get out of the house. But I was able to stay at home with my kids for the first 8 years. Now they're both full time in school, so I don't need daycare or anything like that. But I know there was other friends of mine, like they would have killed to be able to have those first 8 years at home with their kids. And yeah, I was still like working, but it wasn't like sitting at a computer for 5 hours a day. It was like a couple phone calls here and there, and hey, we got to go to the job site. Here, we're going on an outing, and then we'll go to the park on the way home or whatever. I
It's
would
just the
incorporate.
flexibility, I
Yeah.
think, is what it is, right? Because you decide how quickly or slowly really it is what it is, right? It's like how quickly you want to get it done or not done because it's like you are your own boss. So it's like if you want to work, 12 hours a day, great. If you're just like, I need a day off or I'm just working 4 hours or 8 hours, that's the nice thing of this is this you can decide and obviously what the ramifications are of doing that. Like, can I do it or I have to keep on going or is it okay if I extend it or kind of like the planning part of it too. But it's the nice part is you have that flexibility to make those decisions where if you're working, you taking maybe so much time off for them is like you're fired, can't
Yeah.
fire yourself,
Yeah. Exactly. And my success is determined about how much work I put in. So, if I wanted, I think that the most I was ever holding at once was 4, and then COVID hit, but um, those all worked out really well. It was fine. But then other times, I wouldn't find anything for 6 months, or I just didn't want to look for anything. I'm like, oh, it's summer. I want to have the freedom to do whatever. Or like I didn't put pressure on myself. I'm like, well, we got a good payout from that, so that will last me for a couple months. And I feel like looking for something again, or I just gave birth, so I'm not looking for anything for the next couple months because I just don't have the capacity mentally to do it. And so when you think of all of the transactions I've done, that doesn't mean like it was back to back to back for consecutive. I was able to have that freedom to do things when I wanted to, and that is the thing I think that real estate appealed to me, is because I want to determine my own wealth, my own strategy. I don't want somebody telling me what to do. Yeah. So if you're wanting
love
that,
it.
get into real estate, people.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Thank you so much for coming on. It's always so much fun to chat with you and hear about your projects. If you guys love what you heard from Janci, she's going to be tagged on here. If you want mentorship from her, you can DM her, you can follow her and see what she's up to. And if you guys loved my shows and you want to see what I'm up to, then definitely follow me too. Janci, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks again for having me.
Bye, everyone. Bye,
Yeah.
Janci.